Hey guys, good morning. I'm really excited for my guest this morning. We have Mr. Mike Spilky. He's the CEO and president of Location Matters. And it's amazing because Location Matters is a very niche commercial brokerage firm that specializes in restaurants and retail commercial locations in and around San Diego, the whole of San Diego.
Southern California.
Southern California. So Mike, thanks for being on here. I appreciate you coming
down.
down, man.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so take us back. How do you get into brokering restaurants?
Everybody, I get that question often. I was fortunate to have an amazing mentor, my father, who's been doing this for now probably 40 years plus. Wow. I lost count. He's still doing this.
And you've been doing it for a while too.
Yeah. So since I had a mentor, I grew up in this business essentially. I honestly started almost as a baby. Wow. There's nothing better than growing up in an industry. So I learned everything I know from my dad, which is incredible. And for about 15 years, we've had the Location Matters brand here in San Diego.
Wow.
After sort of establishing a business from my dad's business in San Diego. So
and so how did you kind of work with him or for him, or how
well, he's always been in Los Angeles, and I've been in San Diego for the last 16, 17 years since I graduated from SDSU. And
so you came from LA to SDSU?
Yeah, never left.
Okay,
yeah, never left. I brought this brand. I brought the restaurant real estate knowledge and brand of my dad's company, which is called Mavrik Spilky and Associates, and he's still doing what he does in LA to San Diego. And then we transitioned a couple years later. I branched off from his business and created my own company, probably about 5 years after building Mavrik Spilky and Associates in San Diego, sort of a branch office for him. Wow. And Location Matters was a brand that I started with a co-founder at the time.
And let's talk about that. Let's kind of take it one step at a time. So that's kind of difficult because your dad already had something that had a presence and had something. How do you kind of did you guys have an argument? Did you hey, this is what I want to do?
Okay, yeah. So, I got to a point where my dad was getting older and he was a little bit more conservative and wasn't looking to make any sort of significant investment in what I wanted to do here in San Diego. At the time, I was 24 maybe years old, and I wanted to get out there and get real aggressive with what we're doing, work with a lot more landlords, work on bigger projects, really build a brand and more of a presence. And I wasn't getting that sort of support that I needed to do that. So I got all this education and I brought on an associate at the time, and we got an office and made an stride in an investment, really building a company. And so that's what we decided to do. Yes, there was probably a little bit of a tiff during that transition period, but we are father and son and we worked it out eventually.
Nice,
I think he's very proud of what we've accomplished.
And that was 15, 16 years ago. That was early 2000s. It's a different world from now because no social media, no checking in on Instagram in your restaurants. What was it like starting or pivoting the business? Well, you were starting from scratch because it wasn't yet at all.
Sure, yeah. I pounded the phones essentially. Made phone calls to every restaurateur in town, every local restaurateur, every regional restaurateur.
So you would go door knock, or you'd walk and...
Well, the phone was my friend.
Okay.
I called on most of them. And then when I was downtown or somewhere in a walking district, I would try to talk and hand out cards and that sort of thing.
And really what would you say? What would you say? Hey,
are you looking for a new location? Or you consider selling your restaurant business? That sort of thing.
And what would the answers be that you'd get?
Yes, maybe. Do you know anybody looking for somebody that's selling a business or somebody that's looking? And everybody was very conversational and wanted to talk. I had a very friendly personality, and they start talking to me for the most part. You call somebody on the phone, it's a cold call. So there are those people that you're annoying, but I think it's quite a bit easier than calling on. At least for me, it was quite a bit easier than calling on an apartment building owner that trying to get them to sell their apartment building, where they're getting calls from lots and lots of brokers on a regular basis. So it was very different for me. And I also come from a restaurant background, so out of college, my first job was managing a Hooters, actually.
Oh, wow.
And in college, I worked at numerous restaurants.
You were managing a Hooters in college?
I managed the gas lamp. My first job out of college.
Oh, out of college. Okay.
I managed the Hooters and gas lamp. We had 80 employees. We did $4.5 million in sales at the time. It was extremely busy, an hour wait at times.
How did you get that job?
So one of my dad's clients was Hooters. He helped them grow from a local franchisee from 10 stores to 20 stores. And the president of that franchise at the time, I had an interview with him, and they hired me.
Wow.
it was a challenging job. Anybody that's a restaurant manager knows it's a grueling job. The hours are insane. I mean, I would get off at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. at times, and get into the restaurant really early. It was pretty wild. So
I can imagine. And so, but you actually it's different because you understand what some of these owners and managers are going through.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Because it's a different perspective.
Yeah, totally, man. Like on the management side for sure, and even being in brokerage for the last 15 years, all I'm dealing with are restaurateurs on a regular basis. So there's a certain speak and language and just way that they talk. So I could speak their language versus a lot of other brokers who just kind of come in without that real restaurant operations experience.
And that definitely gives you a head up of competition. So now you're kind of setting things up, and so what are some of the challenges when you're starting up, when you're down here? I mean, I'm sure you must have ran into some challenges.
Yeah, starting from scratch, you start down here, and just like your business, I'm sure everybody that's starting out, they start down here, their income's very, very low, and you have to keep your expenses low. And slowly but surely, you build your network and you build your business, and you get known as the guy to do deals in the restaurant space. And I got to that point.
What was the first deal that you were like, oh my gosh, like that worked?
The first deal in San Diego that I did, which was extremely exciting, was in Pacific Beach on Garnett. And at the time I was young, and I still would go out to bars and restaurants and PB. And so it was super cool that I was actually going to be selling a bar on Garnett.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
It was a place. Now today it's a place that's still in existence today. It's called Cabo Cantina.
Oh wow! And so you broke at Cabo Cantina as your first deal.
Yeah, the first one. It's still there, and those guys bought it for a lot of money. And there was a mom and pop operator that was running a restaurant called Yoli's. I don't know if anybody remembers this place, but it was a Mexican restaurant before, poorly run. They were not making any money, and worked on the transaction and just put the deal together with Cabo. And those guys were big restaurateurs from LA and Orange County that owned multiple stores, and they wanted to be in San Diego, and we just put the marriage together. That was a business sale. So some of our we do a number of different things. We represent landlords, obviously, and fill space with restaurants. We represent business owners and help them sell restaurant businesses. So that was a business sale. And
so, I mean, you had to obviously get your broker's license, right?
Sure.
I mean, so when did you actually get your broker's license, and did you, because what did you go to school in, and then when did you kind of make that transition to being an active?
I always knew I wanted to be in real estate in some capacity, even though I took the easy route in school. I studied psychology. I just thought, well, if I'm in college, let's study something interesting. But nobody makes money in psychology, and you always have to get way more education. And school was never my forte or my thing. So basically, I just decided that I wanted to be in real estate. So what my dad did for years and years, while I was managing this restaurant, I figured this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. There's not a lot of growth
While
here.
you were managing Hooters?
While I was managing the Hooters, this was a period of time when the market for residential real estate was totally insane, and you can get a loan by signing your life away.
You were breathing, you could.
Yeah, exactly. So I made a little bit of money, saved it up, and I flew to Arizona. I had 2 days off. I flew to Arizona and said, broker, show me around. Is there anything to buy? I literally bought 2 homes and full price or over ask. Just bought these things. One was 0 down, one was 5% down. And I could have bought them, both with 0 down at the time. And 3 months later, I flipped them for a massive profit.
Wow.
It was incredible. So the guy said, I got buyers for you. You can sell this and make $150,000 in profit. In 2 houses and with 0 down. Okay, great. So I did that. And at that time, that was just when I was like, all right, I'm going to go full time into brokerage. Brokerage is all commission, right?
Yeah.
So it's not for everybody, because you literally will go a year or maybe longer sometimes without really earning anything, especially when you're starting out.
But you did have that sort of seed capital to kind of start off, because you just made that profit, right? So you could wait out that time.
Yeah,
right?
so that allowed me to be able to really get into it.
Fantastic. Yeah. And so kind of, moving forward, so you're building the business. I'm sure you've had some, it was challenging in the beginning, and you've had some success obviously along the way, because that was a great success, the PB deal.
Sure.
And so what are some of the challenges? What are some of the deals that just blew up that you were like, man, that was a waste of time?
Well, the closing timeline for transactions on both the leasing side and the business sales side can be quite long.
Give it
really
like
frustrating.
how long is quite long?
Sometimes it could be 6 months, a year, maybe even longer.
Wow. So to close a deal, it could take 1 year.
Yeah, on the business sales side, we have to wait these days for a liquor license to transfer, and the ABC is taking an exorbitant amount of time right now for license to transfer. So from start to finish, it could take 6 months just for that license to transfer. And we can't get paid until that license transfers.
Wow.
Well, that's just one challenge, but there's so many different details in these transactions that make them more challenging than a 30-day escrow on a home or something.
And then when you were starting out, was there something that because I'm sure you've learned and your knowledge is compounded over time, is there something you missed that kind of, the deal didn't go through because you kind of weren't aware about it, or you didn't know? Is there anything you can share that you're like, man, I wish I knew what I knew now? There's
so many things you learn in a business like this. You have 3 parties involved in a lot of these transactions: a landlord, a buyer, and a seller sometimes. So there's 3 parties, which is very unique. And you have to basically make everybody happy: the landlord, the buyer, and the seller on the business sale transactions. Those are probably the most challenging, whereas the lease transactions, at least you have 2 parties, and that's it. So tenant and landlord. It's a lot easier, but as far as specifics, honestly, there's so many issues that we could have a whole day discussion about all the issues. Yeah.
So now we're in a different space, right? Retail is kind of crashing on the shopping environment. That's kind of getting disrupted with Amazon.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's changed your business a little bit. I'm sure that we're kind of transitioning to, I think it's called experience retailing or experience. What's happening in this space from a retail and a restaurant perspective on what's happening today, and kind of what do you see happening down the road?
So these days, everybody in real estate and retail real estate wants restaurants.
Why?
That's changed drastically from when I started.
Oh, really?
So when I started, restaurants were definitely a thing in shopping centers, and restaurants on street retail was important, but everybody wanted credit. They wanted the chains, the national brands, those sorts of things. These are the guys that I wasn't working with because I didn't have a relationship at the time with those larger chains. I was establishing relationships with local, independent, cool restaurant operators that are going from 1 location or a startup to 2 to 3 to 4. And nobody really wanted them because they didn't have credit. Now things have drastically changed because consumers have changed the way that they want to go out and dine. They want local, unique, fresh, and they don't want chains. And so landlords are now shifting gears and going towards the clients that I've cultivated relationships with for the last 15 years. So what I'm seeing is all my broker competition that don't really focus for the most part on restaurants, that are retail brokers. They're starting to try to figure out how to contact all these local guys and know who's doing what. Well, the information age has created things to be a lot easier, right? So you go on Eater or you go on Yelp or whatever, so you can kind of understand on more of a macro level who's doing what. That didn't exist when I started, so it was really relationship driven. It was really me knowing who's doing well, whose sales are way up here.
Are you eating at the restaurants? Are you actually experiencing everything?
A lot. Well, when I was single and when I didn't have kids, that was pretty much my life. I spent a lot of time in restaurants. Now I have 2 kids and it's a little bit more challenging to get out, but as often as I can, I try to go and try restaurants. Yeah. But there is a lot of reading, a lot of reading blogs and kind of understanding what's going on.
From the consumer side.
Sure.
As well.
Yeah, of course.
So it's changing. So and it's becoming more popular to have that cool restaurant experience. The landlords want that as well. Mm-hmm. The people, the tenants want that, and that live in the communities. The owners that live in the communities. What do you kind of see happening down the road? Is that because it's also, as that becomes more popular, the competition becomes more intense for other restaurant groups. So what? Mm-hmm. How does this unfold?
Well, what we're seeing right now, since everybody wants more restaurants, there's too many restaurants.
Oh wow.
That's really becoming an issue, especially in San Diego, which is such a small city. There's only so many, we call it the competition for the stomach, right? There's only so many times you and I or any human being can go out to eat and fill their stomach. So more options just limits the amount of times and frequency you can go to all these restaurants that exist. So more restaurants they sort of cannibalize themselves in a way. So we will see, if we haven't already, a fallout of restaurants that are just not doing as great. Also, the tastes are changing. What's happening is the millennial mentality is they basically, they try a new restaurant and then a couple times, but they don't really like attach to it for 10 years, right? They got to
like
try
people
the
go to
next.
Applebee's with their whole family forever and ever.
Forever,
right?
yeah. They want to try the next best thing. So the next restaurant opens and it cannibalizes this restaurant. The next restaurant opens, it cannibalizes that restaurant. Wow. So what we're seeing is sort of this, what I call it a nightclub effect. You know, nightclubs, I would always say, would last maybe 3 to 4 years if you're lucky. Well, restaurants are becoming that way unless you're crafting your restaurant in a really unique operation fashion where you're very, very like a restaurant that you can go to every day or a couple days a week where you're serving a high variety of food. There's only a couple of restaurant concepts that are doing that.
And so let's, because even the word restaurant is quite broad, right? So are we talking like a coffee shop that sells bagels or fast casual? We're talking like fine dining. What is the range of the word restaurant?
Yeah, so there's fast food, and then there's fast casual, and then now there's something called fast casual 2.0, which is just a better, higher quality fast casual experience. And then there's casual dining, which casual dining is really what's struggling these days. That's those really large footprint, old school restaurants like a Red Robin, or a Claim Jumper. Those guys are the ones super struggling, CPK. And then there's obviously fine casual, I guess you call it, or upscale casual. So think like Cucina Enoteca or Cucina Urbana. They sort of pioneered that in San Diego, where you can go in really casual and get a high quality food experience. And then there's really fine dining, like all these steakhouses that you see opening down here in Gaslamp. Just baffles me. Really, really high check average, where you have white tablecloths traditionally, things like that. So that's the gamut. That's the gamut of restaurants. Wow. And really, when it comes down to locations, I mean, everyone needs to really fit the demographic that they're located in. And so
where are your clienteles? Are you taking all of those people? Are you taking,
Yeah, I've always shied away from fast food for one reason or another. I don't do a lot of work with drive-thrus, so fast food and chains and franchise brands and things like that are usually ones that we don't work with. And I don't know, really, it just evolved that way. Fast casual, yes. Fast casual 2.0, yes. Upscale casual, yes. Casual dining, not so much, just because that's sort of dissipating. And then fine dining, not as much. There's just not a lot of real estate where fine dining works.
So you're even in your industry, you're still hyper focused.
Sure.
You have a niche within a niche.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what makes you the guy to kind of have the pulse on what's going on with things that are trending, with things that are that people want to go to.
We evolve for whatever project we're working on. So there's a couple new projects that we took on. So Del Mar Plaza is a shopping center that's located in downtown Del Mar, right on the coast. It just sold to a brand new owner, and we're repurposing all of the restaurants in there. So that's a coastal upscale community, or really merchandising food and beverage in there. It's just unique for that location. Well, then we're also taking a Claim Jumper in Carmel Mountain Ranch, basically tearing it down. It's a pad where Costco exists, cutting it into 7 or 8 different restaurant concepts.
Wow.
And there's a certain niche that's going into that merchandising up there.
Wow, and then I'm assuming behind that there's a lot of sort of branding, there's a lot of marketing, there's a lot of, you're creating more of a walkable community when you're kind of placing the right restaurant or the right group of restaurants, in a space, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where location matters. The brand came about as well.
Well, location matters. I always wanted to work on great locations. I didn't want to work on stuff that's way far east or way far south or things that were just lower end demographics. I guess I always wanted to work on upscale communities, nice walking districts, things like that. For restaurants to succeed, they really need to have 2 strong day parts. Really minimum, very strong daytime business, very strong nighttime business.
You need both.
So an area that just has some density of residential but no office would be a challenge for a restaurant. So I try to focus on locations where I know restaurants are going to succeed.
So let's give an example that's really good. I mean, Little Italy is quite a phenomenon these days because it does have both of that. It has great daytime, has great. I mean, the nighttime is even more popular these days than the gas lamp. So how is that replicated? Say, for example, the East Village is a big opportunity zone at the moment in the East Village. How do you kind of take the success of Little Italy? Is it possible to duplicate that daytime, nighttime location on the East Village? And is that an opportunity where restaurants would start going?
It's possible, but it's going to come at the expense of Gaslamp, unfortunately, and maybe even uptown neighborhoods. Like I said, there's only so many restaurants that the city can support. It's interesting that you bring up Little Italy. So early on, Little Italy was all tourist shops and old school sticky Italian restaurants, right? So I always saw Little Italy as a great location for restaurants because yes, you've got tons and tons of access from all the dense office population of downtown, and you have all these amazing condos that are going up all over the place. So you have two strong day parts. And India is a great walking street, always has been. And so we worked on a number of those early restaurant deals and saw very high restaurant volumes come from those restaurants, and everybody started following. Just like anything else in life, everybody kind of follows each other. Stocks going up, everybody starts investing in that stock. So we did the Burger Lounge deal. That was one of the first ones.
Oh,
great corner.
I love that place.
Burger Lounge killed it. It was really the number one unit for the chain at the time that we did that
and
store.
That's a perfect
great
example
story.
of that, local company that has evolved and expanded into multiple. I mean, that's a epitome of. Is epiphany, is that the word?
Well, Burger Lounge has been one of the better clients of ours anyways. We on the tenant representation side, we've worked with Burger Lounge from 3 stores all the way to 25.
25 now.
With that Little Italy store, I think that was maybe the first store that we did with them, which is a great store. So after the Burger Lounge store, we did the Prep Kitchen, Devonti, so some game-changing, like more foodie concepts for Little Italy.
So and that's what's so amazing, and a few people realize is you've kind of been, the tipping point of Little Italy, because you've been able to put these amazing, those restaurants have made amazing impact in that community. So you've made such a huge impact on that community by understanding not just the needs of, you're saying it's a 3-way street, not just the needs of your client, the restaurant, but also the landlord and also the community in there as well. But now and you've had that success in multiple markets, from North County to Little Italy to Gaston. How do you take that to a struggling, is it possible to kind of do that in something like in the East Village? Can you replicate that?
Yeah, you probably can. You have the support of a massive amount of density coming into East Village. So now they're also adding all of the office component as well. So you're going to have those 2 strong day parts. People aren't going to need to drive as much. It's going to be very walkable. But again, you got to be very careful how many restaurants you place into that market. It's just like a shopping center. If you have a shopping center and you put all kinds of different concepts that start competing with each other in that shopping center, some of those restaurants are going to fail eventually.
Coming back to, because I know that this is a hot topic. You've got these crazy tech companies now that's getting into the space, into the restaurant space, because Grubhub, Postmates, etc. These restaurants are sometimes just becoming like a commissary. So talk to us about that.
So the landscape of the restaurant business overall has definitely evolved, and it continues. And this is just another evolution of it. Having to getting your food from these delivery companies. It's convenient. We all do it. Restaurants need to adapt. Essentially, restaurants don't really like it. It costs them a lot. No, they don't. They cost them a lot of money. They have to pay big commissions to these companies, and it also bogs down the restaurant in different ways. They're not built for the volume of deliveries, the out-the-door business. So these days, a new restaurant has the opportunity, when they're building a kitchen, to really figure out how to create that kitchen. To really adapt to the delivery world that we live in today, and it's a different world for sure.
And are you seeing that? Are new operators sort of doing that? They kind of have a mass-produced section.
You need to have, exactly, yeah. That's one way to do it. And you need to have parking that allows for delivery vehicles to come in and out. You need to create packaging that really travels well, and the product that you're delivering better be a product that delivers well, so it doesn't arrive cold. Obviously, pizza businesses have been doing this forever, and they perfected it. There's just some sorts of food that don't deliver well. Yeah. So everybody thinks
ramen noodles.
That doesn't deliver well. Yeah, I know burgers don't, because the bread just gets placed on fries. Yeah.
So, and you see this continuing, or do you see it? Because there's a lot of companies doing that in that space, and do you see it consolidating? See it continue? It's not like we're not, now that we can order off our phone, it's not like we're going to stop.
No, it's addictive, and it's sort of affordable in a way.
And has this affected clients, as people in a negative way? Has it affected restaurants?
Some of them, yes. It's another way that they're sort of cannibalizing each other, and restaurants, they can't afford not to deliver now. But the margins on delivery are either negative, and they're not making money from delivery, or they're very, very thin. And they're also taking seats away from people that would come into the restaurant and purchase other things. You know, they come in and have a glass of wine or a bottle of wine or a beer or whatever, things that are more profitable. Yeah. You know, restaurants really make their money on alcohol. And so if somebody that's just getting delivery, they're not getting the whole experience and being able to sell that customer alcohol, which is the most profitable component.
So with all of these things going on, what do you see happening in the long run, Mike? I mean, how does all these come together with the location, with technology, with the concepts? What do you kind of see happening in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, the business model is evolving, the restaurant business model, and it really astute restaurateurs are understanding that, but it's taking money because to retool those models. If you've already made a significant investment in your restaurant, to go in and start figuring out how to modify it is expensive and it's difficult and it's time consuming. So the way these restaurants are evolving is they need to adapt to the changing environment. There's too many restaurants, too much competition, rents are high, labor's high, labor keeps going up with minimum wage, and this delivery apps is just another component. So what they need to do is go into smaller spaces, sort of have larger patios, figure out how to get their occupancy costs down. So for example, the project we have in Carmel Mountain, very small restaurant spaces, 1,000 square feet plus a big patio, 1,500 square feet plus a big patio. The biggest space that we have is 2,200 square feet. They don't pay for the patio. So they're only paying for the inside. So to maximize the square footage, maximize the seating, try to keep rents as low as possible by keeping your footprint down as low as possible. Footprint down also means less labor. So the operational efficiency that you need to run a restaurant these days is paramount. It's the only way that you can sustain yourself.
And the landlord wins as well because there's a diversification of tenants, mm-hmm. right? And so if one restaurant doesn't do well, he has 6 more that are paying, right? And then you're also activating the space so that the value. I mean, and from my understanding, when you have a smaller space that you're leasing, you're getting a higher dollar per square foot on the rent side, right? So rather than having one big tenant that's paying 7,000 square feet, is it working out that way?
Yeah, so essentially we try to bridge the gap between successful restaurants and successful landlords, right? So if you think about the food court model or the food hall model, that's another one that is seeing a lot of success today. That's because the landlords in that model, the landlord is making the initial investment in all of the restaurant infrastructure. The spaces are super tiny. Everything is common area seating. And there's so many different options. People love it, and they come and they can eat from this place and this place and that place, and the volumes they can do can support the lower occupancy cost. So that model works. But at the end of the day, a lot of those food halls are taking away from regular brick and mortar restaurants with large footprints. So there's a give and take. But from a landlord perspective, if you've got a shopping center with a big building that's one single restaurant, use that restaurant that you have, and we cut them up. We cut it up into multiple restaurants. That's really the only way to achieve, to be competitive right now.
That's amazing, Mike. So much great insights, and so you're also an investor, and you're also a landlord, and you're also in the brokerage side. So you feel a little bit of everything. Mm-hmm. What do you kind of, putting on your investor hat, kind of what do you see the market? How do you kind of see the market in general in San Diego? I mean, with on the retail, on the restaurant, with office spaces, with kind of what's going on. And do you feel that San Diego, because everybody's talking about that we're peaking, we're getting out there, and you've been in this, for a decade and a half. So and you've seen cycles. So where do you kind of see the market in general, based on all your exposure?
Well, generally it feels like we're definitely fairly frothy and sort of at the top of the market. I don't think we're falling off a cliff, but with restaurants, you've got so many different issues and concepts that are coming at us with so many restaurants. I think the market is probably stabilized. I think with minimum wage in the restaurant industry only getting adjusted by the CPI next year, that's going to help. It's basically
CPI?
The CPI, yeah. So for some time, the minimum wage was adjusting by very large chunks. It went from $10 to $10.75 to $11.50, and so now, from now on out, it goes up by the CPI, which is helpful.
You can kind of gauge it. You can kind of expect it. And so you feel that it's frothy in general, but you do feel that there's still opportunities?
Well, we need growth. I mean, we need more density in certain markets. We need growth. We need population growth to support all the growth of restaurants. That's the only way that all these restaurants can sustain.
What stimulates growth?
Well, it's up to all the guys that are, the mayor and all that, right? I'm stimulating growth is pretty much jobs in industry, right? That's why people will come to San Diego. Also affordability, I think if we're competing against LA or Orange County or even San Francisco, San Diego is a pretty affordable place, even though it's not affordable compared to a lot of other states. It's still a very affordable place to live, and it's gorgeous. And thank God we have the beautiful weather here that's drawing everybody here. Yeah. So probably drew you here too.
Absolutely. And so you don't plan on going back to LA. You love San Diego.
I want to keep San Diego a small town. That's the thing. The one thing I loved about San Diego, where LA was just this big bustling concrete jungle of a city, San Diego always had this great small town feel, and we could sit here in jeans and not be so stuffy. And so LA was very much like a little bit of a New York feel, where it's just cars everywhere and lots of concrete.
Fantastic. Well, Mike, it was amazing having you on. It was really awesome. If people want to get hold of you, what's the best way to get hold of you? If they have a restaurant they want to expand, if they have more questions for you, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, you can learn more about us on our website. Locationmatters.com is the website. My email is mike@locationmatters.com. You can also call us anytime. The office line's 858-792-5521. And I look forward to talking to you.
Awesome, Mike. That was amazing. So much insight. Thanks for being on here. I really appreciate it, man.
Absolutely.
Very cool.